Hello there and welcome. Today I'm going to read to you about two different texts, one being Dracula, the 1897 Gothic classic written by Bram Stoker, and Amirpour's 2014 horror movie A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, and compare it to Carol SENF'S article titled Dracula, Stoker's Response to the New Woman, and how it reflects upon in these two texts. Before we begin, what is New Woman? New Woman is a concept that came out of the late 19th century and it is what we in the modern era would call a feminist. They would strive to push for paths that were once close to them, whether it be on a professional, social, educational or sexual level. As SENF puts it, they'd work towards their own personal fulfillment opposed to the more conventional ideas of marriage and motherhood. Stoker and Dracula actively mention the New Woman. After all, it was published in 1897, which is roughly around the time where this New Woman ideology was roughly taking place. Stoker used his platform to convey his ideas of what he thinks the New Woman ought to be. Steph mentions that the book is made up of two different halves on this topic. In regards to the two female characters, Mina and Lucy, it is stated that Mina rejects the forwardness and sexual openness of the New Woman writers, where Lucy makes claim that her desire for three husbands suggests a degree of latent sensuality which connects her with the New Women of the period. So basically, Mina is looking more like one who would dismiss or reject those tropes, where Lucy is more of the rebellious kind of forward thinker that the New Women were becoming. Lucy's transformation to a vampire reflect how her repressive, rebellious desires are taking form, as a sweet, gentle Lucy becomes more monstrous-like. This, Stoker uses Van Helsing to reject the idea of the New Woman, as when Lucy tries to kiss her husband Arthur, once she had started to develop into this monster, Van Helsing grabs Arthur and rips him away. Thus, this is rejecting the ideology of the New Women. Mina, however, represents the more traditional Victorian lifestyle, as seen after her marriage to Jonathan. She would give up her career for him and would do anything as long as it is he who asks her, including learning to write in shorthand. She actively worries about the crew of light, which is Van Helsing and co, showing a more motherly side to them at all times, helping them to complete their tasks to the best of her abilities, constantly worrying and threatening over them with anxiety and compassion. You could really see how much she cares for each individual there, but not on an intimate level, more as a mothering, nurturing level. All while they dismiss her, they tell her to go to sleep. This is no place for a lady, for it is their man brain, it is a man's role to do. Whereas our poor Lucy, once she had been transformed into a vampire and is found luring and feasting on children, which rejects any motherly instincts. The end results are with Lucy's vampire self, aka the analogy for the New Women, is killed in a rather grueling fashion by her husband Arthur. Once she returns to the normal Lucy self before she then goes on to perish, she is finally allowed that kiss she wanted so long ago, showing that only once she has returned to the traditional state, which is the normal state of Lucy, is that men should approve her. And Mina, as the heroine in all of this, plays a pivotal role in Dracula's defeat, illustrating the power they invest in the traditional values. In contrast, Amirpour's A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night is a fascinating look at what would be the complete opposite belief in comparison to Stokers, centering around the vampire girl who is nothing like the vampires in Stoker. But more of just an everyday girl. Looks like a punk rocker, listens to music, likes to hang out. She is not seen actively feasting upon children. Instead, her only interaction with a child is when she threatens, in quite a hostile way, a small boy. But it's for him to not lie and to be a good boy before taking his skateboard, which I'm assuming to believe he had stolen. This is followed by a quite humorous scene where she's seen skateboarding down the street with her clothes blowing in the wind to mimic the wings of a bat, and it illustrates how free she is flying down the road. She is somewhat a saviour of women in Bad City, much like Van Helsing is the saviour of Mina and Lucy. For when men abuse them and treat them so horribly and leave them powerless, she takes it upon herself to protect and eliminate these threats. However, in regards to the protagonist, Arash, who is, after a party, is wandering the streets after taking some illicit substances, she can see the innocence in him and purity. Although he steals and deals in drugs, she then pushes a now fallen Arash onto her new skateboard and takes her back to her place, thus initiating some sort of relation between the two, which is prominent in New Women. It shows a caring side of her that is not seen in any of Dracula's vampires, and thus not demonizing her as a new woman. But it shows how her independence is important as she takes it upon herself to look after Arash. And later on in her home, she even changes in front of him, although having her back turned. It portrays how open she is sexually. She has no need to hide or to quiver just because he's around. She is free to do as she pleases, and Arash shows no discomfort towards this. This highlights that the girl, a new woman, is not being rejected or mistreated at all by the protagonist. So there we have it. Stoker's attempt to craft the new woman ideas into one he believes it should be, and towards a more traditional sense as seen in Mina, opposed to the current outlook at the time which he conveys as the hellish monster as seen in Lucy's vampire state. Whereas Amirpour embraces the new woman as the girl is not the monster of the film. She is the salvation, she is the purity and the protector. And that shows that her strength is comparable to anyone else's and is nothing to be dismissed or to be afraid of.